Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Unplugged Woodworkers podcast. So, what have I been up to? I've been messing around with SketchUp. I've been teaching myself how to use the program. So, I've eventually decided to take the plunge. I did actually do a little post of this on Instagram. And what I'm saying now basically is that I've lost work in the past because I haven't been able to produce something, some sort of a model, whether it be a drawing or whether it be like a SketchUp picture, something like that. I don't draw. I tell a lie, I do draw, but I'm just not very good at it, so I do tend to shy away from drawing things. Most of the design, excuse me, I can't speak tonight. Most of the design basically the way I design, I do it in my head. Basically, I've talked about this. I think I've done a whole podcast on it, how I design basically. So I think that's what's I've just maybe talked myself into I was okay. I was okay with carrying on like this, where in actual fact it's not really that good when people are asking us for drawings and stuff. And the last project I'd done for a guy, he was asking for sketches or drawings and stuff, and I was like I can't really help you out there, He wasn't really pushing for it, but it made me feel a little bit unprofessional, so I thought, basically I should learn to use it. I will say I'm a bit, what's the word I'm looking for? I am a bit surprised because I have actually got a new project that I'm going to start. It's only a very small project, but the first thing that came to my mind was do it in SketchUp, do the plans in SketchUp, which it's not like me at all. Me personally, I'll have an idea in my head. The idea will be made in my head within seconds or minutes, and that's it. Where this time I kind of went, I'll just do it on SketchUp. Don't get us wrong, I still did think it up and I built it in my head in seconds. It's just a simple little step up what I had in mind, but it's very unlike me to want to do that. But yeah, so I've been messing around with that. So I do, as I said in the post on Instagram, I do actually intend on doing plans for the Roman workbench. The Roman workbench. So I am going to do a build video on it. I have had quite a lot of interest, if you like. I've had people messaging us and stuff, asking advice. It just seems all good, so basically I am going to go ahead with the build. That's going to happen very soon. I am going to do this little small project first. I'm going to do a video on it. I'm also planning on doing an article, and I am trying to get back into the article side of things, blogging, and I am pushing YouTube, trying to get more YouTube videos out and whatnot. So I also done some wood burning. I posted a few pictures on my Instagram. It's nothing special, although I will say the geometry for the Hong Kong flag emblem, that was hard work. Now I do like geometry, and if you kind of grasp a little bit of geometry, I don't know a great deal of geometry, but if you grasp a little bit, you can get away with murder. Basically, you can drag yourself through it. And for the life of me, this Japanese emblem, it had my life. I think I spoke about this on the last podcast as well. I think I did. I remember saying that. I'd been trying to draw it for 3 hours and I still hadn't got any further forward. I did manage to get it done. It took a lot of figuring out, but it is done. So the client seems happy with it. So Yeah, it's nothing special, but if you wanna check it out, even just for the geometry of it, the wood burning itself, it's nothing special. It's just more the geometry. It's kind of cool. The geometry. It's head baffling. Right, I'm babbling on here. So today I wanted to talk about the not so pleasant side of working with hand tools. I don't think a lot of people like talk about it a lot. I mean, Paul Sellers. I've never ever heard Paul Sellers like talk about the bad side of it. I'm not. But bad might be the wrong word, perhaps. But let's just say there is an unpleasant side to it. So, as I said, I've never heard Paul Sellers talk about it. I've never heard anybody else talk about it that really, works like basically full time with hand tools. So, I'm just going to go through a few tasks and stuff, what I just don't. I can't say I don't like them. Just sometimes it can be a little bit overwhelming and whatever else, it might be tiring. I think like a lot of these are just like time constraints and physical constraints. Basically, if time and what's the word I'm looking for here? Time and just say your physical ongoing, if you like, if you were able to, if you were just able to keep going and going, you didn't fatigue your physical fatigue. I don't know if I'm explaining that right, but basically, if you didn't fatigue, some of these wouldn't be an issue, or probably all of them wouldn't be an issue. But I'm just going to go through a few things anyway. So, multiple projects at the same time. This does happen to us. It hasn't happened since Christmas time, just before the Christmas time, but it can and does happen to us. Every so often I'll just get ram-packed with, it can be anywhere from 3, 4, 5, 6 projects. When I say projects, these are basically orders. People have ordered them, ordered pieces of furniture, or they just want me to build them something. And this can be quite a problem, and it's very unpleasant. Don't get us wrong; it's nice to have the work. Obviously, I've got to pay the bills at the moment. This is my only source of income. Obviously, my day job's no longer there anymore. So, basically, this is it. So I do need to get as much work as possible. So the problem being that when you get multiple projects or multiple orders at the same time, it's just very frustrating. Not frustrating. It's what's the word? It can almost panic us a little bit. Maybe panic's not the right word, but I try to. I think the first thing I think of is like, oh my God, there's so much to do. Where do I start? And I've got to get it done before this time. Because sometimes I do get constraints put on us, like, this is for my wife's birthday. Can you get it done by this date? And obviously not wanting to turn work down, and you have a rough thing in your head, and you say, yeah, I could probably get that done. So you reply to the client, and it's like, yeah, I'll get that done for you, no problem. So straight away, I've committed to that, and I've put myself under pressure. So this is like an ongoing thing. So the problem with this is that anybody that has used hand tools, anybody that uses hand tools, and anybody that uses power tools will know the difference with time. It can and does take a lot of time to do certain tasks. It can and does take time to complete certain projects. It's like, this is one of the big ones for obviously the time constraint. When you've got multiple things, it's just like, whoa, it's really panicky, if you like. I don't really know how else to describe it. A good one for this, or a good example for this, would be the time when I can't remember if it was 7 or 8 tape cassette coffee tables to build. Those had to be sent over to Germany. I was on like a time constraint. The woman and the husband were opening like a music themed cafe. I believe the husband was some sort of DJ from Germany. He was like a bit of I don't know if he was like a radio talk show host, something like that. I think he was like kind of like radio famous, maybe. So obviously they were opening this cafe, and they were like on us all the time. Basically, how are you getting on? We need them done this time and that time. I think I have talked about this before. From the start to finish, it was just a total nightmare. I was really under pressure at the time. I was working away offshore, so I was away for 2 weeks at a time. I was coming back, and I was home for 2 weeks. In those 2 weeks, I was just work. And obviously, when you're doing things with hand tools, it just takes all that much. It just takes longer to do. Basically, there's no getting around it. I mean, when you've got multiple things to do, machines and power tools will win hands down. You can't really argue with that. As much as I love my hand tools, I can't argue with the fact that sometimes it would be more beneficial to have power tools. So yeah, they were just, rightly so, obviously, because I had committed myself, so they were just like, on us and saying, how's it getting on, and, are we on schedule and stuff. And I had other things going on in my life at that time, and I was very, very stressed, very stressed. I don't do well with stress, so yeah, and this is just like the other, having multiple projects. I suppose it's the same thing, but it's just the time constraint. It's the time. I mean, I remember when I was doing this. I mean, some of the hours, I think, like when I was there, some of the hours I was working, like from like whenever I woke up till, sometimes it could be like 7, 8 o'clock at night. Some nights, when it got really close to the deadline, I was like 10, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night. It was crazy, absolutely crazy. So, going on to one of the tasks, I've got rip cutting here. So, rip cutting, it's the same. Well, I say it's the same again. It is time consuming, rip cutting by hand. It's not too bad if you're just ripping, kind of 3/4 inch material. I suppose it depends on the material you're ripping, the thickness of the material, because there is quite a lot of difference. If I'm ripping 3/4 inch spruce or 3/4 inch pine, and I've got a sharp saw, I've just, maybe I've just sharpened my rip saw, or I've just purchased a new Japanese, Ryoba blade. It's just going to glide. It's just going to glide through the pine like butter. Don't get us wrong. Obviously, I will fatigue in time, but the time I fatigue, it's going to be a lot longer than what it would be with oak. And it's the same again with oak. So if I'm going through material 3/4 inch, to be honest, I think I could probably go through the equivalent of maybe 4 or 5 meters. Before, at good pace, before I start to slow down and tire down, and it depends if it's kind of spread out throughout the day. That's not too much of an issue, but if you're kind of going through like 2-inch thick oak, I mean, if you've never done it and you plan on doing it, or if you ever come across it, you're going to be in for a big surprise. Let's put it that way. It can be super, super tiring to do it. It just really takes a wind out of you, shall we say. Ripping's just how can I put it? I was going to say ripping's a man's job, but obviously I don't want to sound sexist. Having said that, though, I've known three women to actually to actually start ripping, material. Was it pine? I think there's been two girls that have used pine and one girl that used oak. All three of them like basically quit half the way through, and like I had to finish the rip cut off. So not to be just, I'm not trying to be sexist or anything. I'm just pointing out that it is hard work. But bearing in mind, I've seen guys give up as well. So it's not for the faint-hearted. So when you think about it, if you're doing stuff like this day in and day out, or it's as I said, it's not for the faint-hearted. It can be really taxing as well on you physically. I've spoke about me back before. My back's not in like the best shape. I have got damage to three of the vertebrae, muscle imbalances, so it can play up from time to time. So it's probably not the best thing for me to be doing. Like really like heavy things like that. But that's probably one of me bigger ones. Like I say, I don't mind the 3/4 inch oak, stuff like that doesn't really faze us too much as long as me saw sharp. But obviously 2-inch, I've even done 3-inch before. That was just a total nightmare. That was. So while I'm on with the cutting, resawing, that's another one that can just take so long, and it's that again can take the wind out of you. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people who's listening to this now have probably done some resawing, I would imagine. So typically, if I do any resawing, it tends to be ripping a board in half. A board of a thickness of like roughly 170 millimeters. That's basically the size of the boards I get like a lot of, like my oak boards. And sometimes I've got to rip these in half or rip them in quarter, So you're basically ripping the full width, which is 170 millimeters. So that can be really tiring. That can be really time consuming. It's one of those. It's maybe I've got like 4 or 5 of these boards that I want resawn. So that's like 4 or 5 boards I've got to produce, and you can imagine it does take a good while. I remember when I first started doing things like this, and I was using me rip saw, and I think it was taking us about an hour. And I went over to the Japanese. It was a big Ryobi saw, and it is actually sold as a kind of like a resaw saw basically, and it cut it down to 15 minutes. The only issue with this is that it dullens the blade when you're resawing boards. It'll obviously, because it's covering more area, if you like, it will dullen quicker. Yeah, and that's the only issue with that. So you kind of, well, me personally, I haven't got the money to go out and buy new blades all the time. So I do actually, when I think about it, I do actually try and shy away from resawing if I can. As I said, it's just a lot of work. It's the same again with this. This is time consuming, and it's also can be quite physical as well. It's monotonous as well, because you're just basically staring at it. You're sawing and sawing and sawing. Sometimes it looks and it feels like you're not getting anywhere at all. So that can be a bit of a nightmare doing that. Next on the list is drilling large holes. So I cannot really comment on other material, because I haven't really like drilled like massive holes or bigger holes in the other material, other than oak, really, to be honest. It can be common for us to use a bit. Obviously, using my bracing bit, and I'll use a bit at 1.25 inches. That's the biggest bit I have. So same with this. This can be quite. I wouldn't say it time consuming per se. It obviously depending on the thickness of the material. I am able to sharpen my bits. I do a decent job, so they are quite sharp. But obviously, the bigger the bit you're using, the harder it is to actually turn the the brace. It probably would be better for that for me if I had a bigger brace. I'm not going to go out and buy a bigger brace. I haven't seen a bigger brace on a flea market. Obviously not now. With everything that's happening in the world, because there's like here in the northeast of England, there's no flea markets or anything, which I miss, to be honest with you, because I do like to have a rummage around all the old tools and whatnot. So I think I'm possibly going to be on a lookout for a bigger brace, but just the regular size braces, what everyone has, or whatever, what maybe what your dad had, or your granddad had, or you might just have it because you're a hand tool woodworker. You'll know the size of the brace I'm on about. Most people will anyway. So if you're using a large bit, going through oak, that can be really tough, and it's the same again. That's very fatiguing. So take for instance, I might have anywhere from 4 to 8. I mean, 2 is not too bad if I drill 2, but after I've actually finished the second hole, I'm kind of like, whew, you're out of breath, and you're feeling a bit tired. Obviously, you've been doing stuff like during the day, so it's not just, you're not just going to drill two holes and be tired. I'm obviously talking about you're just going through your day and then you need to drill 2 holes. So they can actually take a little bit of muscle, if you like, to actually turn. Say the likes of say the likes of a Roman workbench, something like that. Because I have just done like a like a circle only. I haven't actually made a conical tenant. I think I've done about 3 benches where I've just done a round tenant rather than a conical tenant. So if you've the time I've drilled like 4 of those, I've come away. I've had to have a little sit down and a cup of tea. So next on the list is drilling multiple holes. So even if these are smaller holes, and when I say multiple holes, I am actually talking about multiple holes. I mean, like, I'm talking about, like 20, 30, 40 holes for whatever reason. A good example of this, I can't remember how many holes it had in it. I think it may have had, off the top of my head, it may have had somewhere in the region of 200 holes. And I did actually make I think it was like a high-speed video of this when I made a walnut and leather bag. If you want to go and check it out, it is on YouTube. But I drilled every single hole with an egg whisker. That egg. I can't even think of the correct name for it, but it's but yeah, like, I'm sure it was somewhere in the region of 200 holes. So the problem with this is obviously it's time consuming to start with, but you've got to take the time to mark everything out, and obviously when you're doing everything by hand, you've got to make sure your drill's in the right position. So obviously you've got to position it with your finger, get it where you want it, and then square the drill up, and then obviously start turning the gears, if you like, or the handle. I'm not too sure of the correct terminology for that. But you get where I'm going, so obviously if you've got 200 of those to do, it's gonna, it's gonna be very time consuming. Whereas if you've got 200 holes to drill and you take it to the drill press, you basically set up a quick little fence, and you can do multiple, holes in next to no time. Everything's nice and straight. So obviously same again, when you've got multiple holes to do like that, multiple things to do like that, machines will always win. It is always going to be easier. So yeah, that's as I said, it's more that one's more time. It's not really I wouldn't really say it was physically demanding. It's just the time. So next on the list is flattening stock. This is an absolute killer. An absolute killer. It can be very problematic as well, especially if you're not used to doing it. Just the other day, I had a guy who messages on Instagram, and he's actually making a Roman workbench. And I think he was having a little bit of difficulty in flattening the bench. He did say he hadn't done anything like this for quite some time. So he was out of practice basically. I guess I'll probably struggle as well, because I don't do this a lot myself. So I'll more than likely be able to practice myself when I come to do it. But this is another one. This can be stressful. It can be very demanding, physically demanding, and it's usually very time consuming. Depending on the size of the stock that you're doing. When I'm talking to you now, and what I've actually got in my head is a dining tabletop, because that was the last thing I'd done. So that's kind of fresh in my mind. That table broke me. It broke us. Yeah, that was a lot. I think the reason that it's so fresh in my mind is because I had to flatten it. I got good results, but then I still had to continue taking material off because I had the sticker marks, basically a chemical reaction between oak on oak. They've basically been stacked on oak stickers, and they shouldn't have been stacked on oak stickers, basically, and that caused a chemical reaction, and it basically leached through into quite a lot. It's so far into the thickness of the oak, so that's why it's so fresh in my mind. To be honest, I think it's scarred my brain. I don't think it'll ever go away, that. But yeah, as I said, that can be stressful, time consuming, same again, physically demanding. You've also, like I was saying before, you've also got the problems with the twisting, cupping. So I think one of the main things I get or hear all that. I have had a few messages about this in the past as well. When people are doing this, they'll actually playing in a cup, or they'll actually playing in a twist. And I'll put my hands up, I've actually done it myself. It's so easy to do if you're getting gung ho with it. If you're you're just you're steaming ahead, and it looks like you're making progress. It feels like you're making progress. The grain's popping out of you, and it looks beautiful, and you're thinking, yeah, I'm getting there, and you don't take the time to check it. Honestly, I can actually be really bad for things like this. Sometimes I'm a little bit overconfident in myself. In reality, I should take a step back. And eye down the piece. Get some winding sticks. I say winding sticks. I don't even own winding sticks. I just tend to use whatever's lying around. If I've got to take the plane to it to actually get the stick square, yeah, that's what I do. I should really take the time to make some, or buy some. Um, I'm really not in the position to buy any at the moment, but um, it would be nice to be able to do that. There's a guy on Instagram. I've mentioned him before, Liam. Is it Liam Rigby? I think perhaps I can't quite remember his name, but he makes beautiful winding sticks. I think he's from York, somewhere in York, maybe North Yorkshire. I might be wrong there, but if you're looking for some winding sticks, I would check them out. Like I say, they are quite nice. So back to the tabletop, because I'm babbling again. So yeah, as I was saying, that can be an issue, with the twists and whatnot. So just when you think you're getting somewhere, or you're getting close to like finishing, and then you kind of, oh no, that corner's too high, I'm going to have to work on that, that's on that corner. Or you might have two corners that are lifted, you might have a dip in the middle, there's so much that can go wrong if you're not paying attention. And as I said, I put my hands up. I can be quite bad for this sometimes. So I don't know. I don't know if that would be me least favourite task, perhaps, or me worst one, shall we call it. I cannot make my mind up between that and rip cutting 2-inch thick oak. I think they're both pretty gruesome. So I don't know. I mean, all of this, what I'm talking about, all these all these things I'm mentioning, this was kind of like all come about because of a few questions I've got over the last, I think it's over the last month. Every now and again someone will messages either on Instagram, Facebook, whatever. They'll ask for a bit of advice, or they'll, sometimes I'll just get someone who will message and just say, I love what you're doing, it's great, but how do you manage this and how do you manage that? So that's basically where this podcast came from. So the guy who I'm thinking about, I can't remember the guy's name, but he did ask us like a few questions. One of the questions was, I've actually had this asked a few times by a few different people in the last month, and they said, would you go back to power tools? So I wouldn't, at this point in time. I've got no plans to go back to power tools, but as I said in the messages, if need be, to actually, to feed myself and to pay the mortgage, then yeah, I would. Having thought about everything, with a time, obviously time constraints, time consuming, physical fatigue and whatnot. Sometimes you've just got to do what you've got to do, and I'll be honest with everybody, I would have no hesitation whatsoever to go out and buy a few power tools. So the question I got after that was kind of, what would you buy? So I wouldn't go out and buy multiple power tools. I think, to be honest, it would be a track saw, and if I had enough room, which I don't have enough room, it would be a bandsaw. I think those are the only two tools I would probably go out and buy. I already have a cordless drill, so I do use a cordless drill from time to time. But I had all sorts. I had a big Makita table saw. I gave that away. I had a thickness planer. I think that's still around at my mum's. I think it's broke, to be honest. I had 2 or 3 circular saws, and I had what else did I have? I had a biscuit jointer, and I had a big array of power tools and whatnot. I don't ever think I'd go back to that. Having all those tools. I just kind of where I am now. I just really don't see the need. Although as I said, with the rip, the rip cutting, it can be quite tiring, and it can be quite time consuming. So, as I said, if I was to get like a really big order, or a really lot of orders at the same time, I'd have no quarrel about going out and buying myself a track saw just to speed things up, to help us out. Because at the end of the day, I'm a one-man band. That's it basically. So, as I said, what needs to be done needs to be done. So I also didn't say in the message, or messages rather, that I wouldn't use machines to do my joints. My Morse and Tennant joints, dovetail joints, housing joints, stuff like that. I just wouldn't do it. The reason behind that is that my results are just like a lot better. Like tenfold, even more. That's one thing I will say. When I started using hand tools, me results just went through the roof. For me, me personally, when I started to learn, it was crazy the amount I improved. So it's quite funny though, because if you look at some of some of the furniture that's kicking about, from big stores, like what's that one in England called? There's one in England, I think, is it Oakland Furniture, something like that, Oak Furniture Land, something like that. And I have actually seen pieces of furniture from there, and from the outside, they don't look too bad. It's like, yeah, they are quite nice, but it's not until you get like close to them, and the one I examined, it had dovetail drawers, and these dovetail drawers were done by machines, and that actually filled the dovetails. The dovetails were really gappy, so that actually filled them. So clearly someone's set up the machine wrong, or what, something's went wrong somewhere along the line, but that just wasn't good. There was a few other things. I think a couple of the shoulders of the Tennants, they weren't like fitting properly. I'm only talking about a millimetre, but if that was me doing it, that millimetre wouldn't exist. It would be, wood to wood. There would be no gap, no millimetre. So, that's one of the things I personally think why you're better off doing the joints by hand. Also, when you're doing them by hand, if you do manage to screw one of them up, because you're doing them all individually, it's only going to happen to one. If you're doing it on a machine, it's going to happen to every single joint, because the machine's set up that way. So I think that's one of the downfalls to doing things like that. So I think this is going to be like a 2-part series, because I've done like the negative parts of woodworking with hand tools. So I think it's only fair that the next podcast I should talk about the positives. Obviously I have just started like covering it there, but I think I'm going to save the rest for next week. I think it'll be quite good just to kind of big the old the hand tools up a little bit, because I think it can seem a little bit overwhelming, and that's what a couple of these messages were as well, though. I really like what you're doing, but it kind of seems very overwhelming what you're doing. How do you manage, So there has been a few people that have, basically said that to us. So I think it would be a good idea to cover the, the positives of working with hand tools. So I'm going to call it there, guys. Thanks very much for listening. Thanks to everyone that's been watching my YouTube videos, to everyone that's subscribed to us, everyone that's following us on Instagram, everyone that takes the time to write us comments, messages us. There's been a lot more people messaging us lately, and I do try to get back to everyone, within a little bit of time. I am normally quite good with things like that, so it's quite nice to get to talk to woodworkers from around the world and whatnot. It's pretty cool. So thanks everyone that's took the time to do that, and until the next time, I shall speak to you later.